Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today we are taking a look at Wargaming's most controversial premium ship to be added into World of Warships. And that is, of course, everyone's favorite Tier 10 American supercruiser, the Puerto Rico. So, a little over 2 weeks ago to the day is when we got to end the Puerto Rico event back in 2020. It ran from, I believe, the 16th of December through the 14th or 15th of January. It was just a little over a month between the start time and the end time. So for those of you that weren't around last year when this happened, boy, did we get quite an event from this from this patch. I believe it was what 8.11 through 9.0 is I think when this happened, if I'm remembering my patch numbers correctly. But anyway, so the Puerto Rico event was quite the, well, PR disaster, the Puerto Rico disaster, Puerto Rico dumpster fire. It had many a name. So this was, of course, the very first dockyard ship, for those of you that weren't around back then. This is the beginning of the whole dockyard campaigns and such. And the way it worked is just like it did today. You grind directives, get shipbuilding phases, turn them in to complete phases of building the ship, and so forth and so on. But the thing was, the Puerto Rico campaign, at least from what we were shown of preview footage and footage that was shown off on the public test server, the directives were pretty challenging, but they didn't look too undoable. It looked like it was going to be a challenge, but it looked like a decent bit of people would be able to actually build a ship at little to no cost to them. But boy, when the event went live, that is not what we got. What happened was the directives on the public test server and everything that was shown off beforehand were much easier and much less challenging than the actual directives upon their release. The directives were pretty insane, and most Unicum players and most die-hard players would not be able to complete the ship without dropping around at least $100 on it, at least. Now, there were some mad lads that did actually grind out the Puerto Rico 100% for free, or as free as they could actually do it. And hats off to those guys too, because in order to do this, you literally had to grind away your Christmas and New Year's break, because it took place over Christmas and New Year's from the 16th of December to I think the 15th or 14th of January. So imagine having to grind the Anchorage, Odin, and Hizen for that long. Yeah, obviously they learned a little bit from this. And actually a lot of it, because just how they handled the following dockyards is just night and day from how they handled the Puerto Rico event. The Puerto Rico event, we didn't really get to see the directives beforehand, besides the ones that we saw on the PT server was shown off in the update videos and such. And obviously the ones that we got were not those. But when the Odin event came around sometime later, it was a very different experience. Wargaming was a lot more open with us. They showed us the directives beforehand, even released a spreadsheet, ironically, with all the directives in them. They're very clear about how the event was going to go. We even had a longer time to grind out the Odin and subsequent dockyards. So it is very clear that they learned their lesson from the event. But it wasn't just that went sideways about the event itself. It was just their handling and response to the event. They 100% just dropped the ball on the response to the outrage from the community. A response from staff, some posts put on the forums were just, I don't know how people have so little common sense. It was actually implied that the event was designed for people with quote-unquote health issues. And I'm not joking. An employee of Wargaming said that. And you can find the message on the forums, and there's been umpteen billion screenshots taken of it, I'm sure. But yeah, that happened, and some other things that some employees said to try kind of troll the community didn't help out either. But yeah, that's all in the past now, and it's obvious that they've learned their lesson, which is a good thing. And like I said before, if something was learned from the Puerto Rico disaster, then at least it wasn't all just crap, you know. If you make a mistake and you learn from it, that's good. And Wargaming did learn from that. Like I just mentioned, the previous Dockyard events are much better. The Odin, the Anchorage, and the Hizen, we got way more time. The directives were nowhere near as insane. And the ZF2 is coming up here soon, too. And, you know, I understand why people don't enjoy the Dockyard events because, you know, people will just outright throw money at their screen to get the ship. But it doesn't really matter what event or activity Wargaming puts up for some ship. People will always throw the money at the screen for it. And that in and of itself isn't a bad thing either. That's how the servers are kept on for everybody else. But anyway, the Puerto Rico herself, was there anything controversial about the ship itself? Honestly, no. The ship is actually quite fine. It's pretty well balanced, pretty well rounded. It's actually a pretty good ship. When I reviewed it for the first time, obviously, didn't go over so well because I did, of course, have to buy the thing to review it because I'm not a CC. I don't get access to these ships beforehand. I had to buy the ship, and boy, that was one of the few videos that got a negative like ratio there for the first couple of days. It's kind of balanced itself out now, but there's still I think almost 300 dislikes to 600 likes or something like that. And then of course there's also the Thunderer video that said the Thunderer was broken in OP, and that one I think it's still like 50-50 with a little bit in the positive now. But apparently it's okay to think Thunderer is OP now. That's a thing that's happening now. So okay. But anyway, yeah, the Puerto Rico itself isn't that bad. It's a nice ship. It has 12 305mm guns. With, depending upon your build, on either 19-second reload time, or if you go for the anti-concealment build, you have roughly a 16-second reload time when your ship, not when your ship, but when there's a ship in your detection range that's spotted. It's really weird how all these new skills work like that. Like if X, then Y, and all that jazz. Like I got to do a mathematic formula to calculate how much of a boost I get to my reload speed now. But anyway, and this is of course the American cruiser AP with the super heavy AP shells, which absolutely friggin' slap with 12 of them, but the guns aren't all that accurate either, especially for a super cruiser. Super cruiser's guns are normally pretty darn accurate. If you see ships like the Alaska, the Aegir, the Azuma, the Yoshino, and the Stalingrad, they all have really accurate guns, not even mentioning the Siegfried, which is just special in and of itself, but they're not that accurate. It's like a mini Montana. It's got pretty similar dispersion to Montana. I think at one point in its development it actually did have Montana's dispersion. But of course, you know, you can slap some modules on there and it gets pretty good there with the modules and all equipped on it. And again, you're throwing 12 shells at ships at a time, so that's pretty good. And the A department, it was pretty decent. You know, AA, well, back then was in the age of the CV rework, but AA is still, of course, all over the place. Maneuverability-wise, it is an absolutely giant ship, of course. It's one of the larger super cruisers, so it's not that maneuverable, but I have been running double rudder on it with the anti-concealment build, and it's working to a degree and not working to a degree because of the size and chunkiness of the ship. But speaking of chunkiness, it actually has the best armor out of the super cruisers right now. Its citadel is nice and low in the waterline. It's actually beneath the waterline. And this is one of the, actually it is the hardest super cruiser to citadel, period. You can only really do it at extreme ranges with plunging fire, or if you've got some big old guns like the Thunderer, the Kremlin, the Yami, the Shikishima, ships like that, you know, you can of course just bully pretty much whatever, but even then, you either have to catch it when the ship's turning hard over, or at long range. So this isn't like the Stalingrad when it came out, which is just a bully to everybody. It's not really that, it's not terrible in random battles. But it's definitely very, very, very good for clan wars. It can basically, well, back when super cruisers and cruisers could take survivability skills, it was a nice solid replacement for a battleship in clan wars, or a substitution for a battleship to where you can kind of, you know, sneak basically the tankiness of a second battleship in there with some pretty darn good firepower as well. Of course, throw radar, well, your choice of any combination of radar, fighter, spotter, hydro, or DFAA on the ship, 2 of those at least, it's got a good bit of utility in there as well. But again, because of the dispersion and the reload time of the guns, it's nothing really crazy in terms of firepower. And even in random battles today, you know, it's a good ship, but not one that's out there breaking the game or anything like that. And the ship itself really wasn't that controversial. It was really the event around this ship. Now, of course, this is a dockyard ship, so it may not come back ever. They haven't really said if these ships ever are going to come back into the game. They haven't shown up in the Christmas containers this time around for Christmas, and I'm just going to assume that these ships are just one and done, and you know, if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. But anyway, guys, I just thought it would be fun to look back at the Puerto Rico event just about a little over a year away from its end and see how far the game has come since then. So like I said, Wargaming did certainly learn their lesson from the Puerto Rico event, and they have certainly improved upon subsequent events, which, again, I like to give Wargaming credit where credit is due. They did learn their lesson, and the previous dockyard events have been really good. I do hope they continue to stay on that path. We'll see if the ZF2 dockyard, which should be happening here, I think, in another patch or two. I think the Italian battleship event starting first, and then the ZF2 is happening, so I think it's 2 or 3 patches away. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's the right timeline. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way now to 25,000 subs, and we just passed 22,400, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Tuesday. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.